Hey, how you going? The topic we have chosen is question B, under the heading Stakeholders at Play, which asks the question whether or not NBA superstar Michael Jordan's playing salary, which was roughly US 30 to 35 million per annum, during his time at the Chicago Bulls was warranted, given how good he was. So now Hayden and I will be arguing that it was fully warranted and deserving, and throughout the vodcast we'll give our evidence and express our arguments as to why he deserved the amount of money he was earning annually. We'll also compare to different musical artists and actors at the time, other stars, and also take a look back at how he dominated the 90s and what player nowadays can compare, and also maybe fill the Jordan shoes from the 90s.
So I'll start off by talking about just the Bulls. So during the Chicago Bulls' dominant reign in the 1990s, Michael Jordan was possibly the world's most famous and known athlete. He was the player that basketball fans dreamt of seeing play live, and someone who today remains a household name as arguably the greatest basketball player to ever live. The numbers he would average each season and the records he broke led to massive amounts of money being thrown his way in the form of sponsorships, most notably Nike's creation of the Jordan brand, which is just as successful today as it was back when it first started. Also in the form of movie deals, so Michael starred obviously in a well-known flick Space Jam, which he was obviously the main actor in that film. And of course, Michael's contract sizes he was given throughout his career with the Bulls. The fame and raw talent he possessed contributed to him being the first player to receive over US $30 million a season for playing basketball in the National Basketball Association.
And you have to look back at that whole decade in the 90s, and the Bulls won 6 championships, and Michael played a key role and was the main inspiration through that time of success for the franchise, winning MVPs himself and playoff MVPs.
Yeah.
According to Brian E. Denham's article in the book Michael Jordan, Corporate Sport, Media Culture and Late Modern America, he discusses how attending a Chicago Bulls game at the United Center in Chicago during the peak of the Jordan era was more of an extravaganza, with various marketing strategies and advertisements being presented to fans at every opportunity possible. This was a prime example of American corporate culture and globalization that surrounded the name Michael Jordan. The need and want for large corporations in America to sponsor and endorse Michael made him a money-making machine for big businesses, which included the NBA and, of course, the Chicago Bulls.
So, combining the stardom with his ability to play basketball, Michael thoroughly warranted the playing salary he received from the Bulls. An argument could even be made that he should have received more money per season for playing, based on the income he would generate not only for the Chicago Bulls but the NBA as a whole. And this is through merchandise sales, ticketing prices, which obviously would go up every time the Bulls were coming to different cities to play, or even home games. They were very expensive and very high in demand to get at that time. And also overall fan viewership on television of Bulls games in America and around the world. Everyone wanted to watch Michael play. The extent to which Michael improved sales for several corporations can be seen in an article by Roy S. Johnson, who discusses the Jordan effect and how Michael was basically his own brand, and anywhere that he went in terms of sponsorship, he helped boost revenue for that particular company. This is because Michael was a role model to many children and adults in particular who all aspired to play and be like him on the court. This idolization obviously led people to want to purchase products that he endorsed. So he endorsed big business, so companies like Wheaties and McDonald's and other sort of sports brands like Nike, obviously, and everyone wanted to own a piece of Jordan. Everyone wanted to be similar to him.
Of course, and would there be a criticism there?
There could be, but overall, I think his star power outweighed sort of any sort of criticism that he received throughout his career, regardless of what it was. So it's understandable how people might criticize Ryan, like you said, about his salary, and this is mainly because he was earning way more than any other player in the NBA at the time. Most players at that time were earning far less money than Michael, even though they're obviously still playing in the same level of competition. So, but the downside is, unfortunately for them, is a lot of big contracts that are handed out today and years before come down not only to playing ability, but also an athlete's marketability and role they play with attracting talent to join the team. So this, can be seen through certain teams in today and back then. Genuine stars that go to teams will attract other stars, which will lead to a team being a genuine contender for an NBA championship. Also, a player's ability to sell tickets to games, both home and away, has an impact on whether a team wants to sign them or not, and the overall image the public has about them, whether it be positive or negative. So it's a lot harder for someone who's had a few negative issues that the press have found out about. It's a lot harder, and they're a lot less likely to receive a big contract due to the risk of giving out a poor image towards the team that they're employed by. So in an article by the Sports Journal titled Determinants of NBA Player Salaries, it discusses how players' abilities on the court in the various areas of basketball, for example, their ability to defend, shoot the three, rebound or pass, or any sort of area of basketball that's important. These roles play a key factor in contract sizes given out to players, and this is because finding a talented star that can do everything at a high level on the court will lead to much larger contracts, but that's also a lot rarer to find that sort of talent, especially considering a lot of NBA players are good in certain areas, but not necessarily good in other areas.
Of course, and we spoke about before that the contract Michael Jordan earned was between 30 and 35 million per annum US. It was 33 million US, the contract, and this was a contract signed before the 1997-1998 season. So the Bulls were investing in a player they knew was consistent, that had won championships, won MVPs. They were investing in a player that was proven. There are a lot of proven players now, and they're the players that are getting the biggest contracts. They were investing in someone that was marketable, an elite player at the time, a superstar, head and shoulders above the rest, but he was invaluable to that franchise and that organisation. He was priceless, a player like that, especially throughout the 90s. It was a time where they didn't have the maximum contract rule, so the Chicago Bulls had the opportunity to pay Michael Jordan what they felt he deserved. He was a symbol for the league at the time.
Definitely.
There was the likes of Kerr and Pippen in the team, notable players that helped them to a 72-10 record for a season in the 90s. Star-studded team, of course, but none of them had the ability or the
overall stardom was
that Michael Jordan.
Michael was a class above everyone in the NBA.
Can you take us through what he earned compared to other well-known people throughout the 90s?
So, according to IMDb, which lists the highest earning stars in other fields of work, such as the music or movie industry during the 1990s, Michael earned more money than several big-name actors and musicians for the contract he was given strictly to play basketball. If you would include the total amounts of income he received from sponsorships and endorsements, then he would be right up there with the highest earning stars at the time. So stars like Celine Dion for the music industry or Bruce Willis for the movie industry.
Definitely. In an article titled Sports, Media, Culture and Race, Some Reflections on Michael Jordan by Douglas Kellner from the University of Texas, the author discusses how advertising had taken over sports in America during the 1990s and that Jordan's image of the greatest basketball player made for huge dollars to be made by large corporations that were linked to him in any way. Michael had been criticised for his relations with sponsors like Nike, who had been caught for using poor labour practices in developing countries, which somehow impacted and tarnished Michael's image at the times. He experienced negative press sometimes during his career, and although this came, it's never diminished his ability, and he was also always able to keep a same consistent level throughout, which warranted the money he received. During the 70s and 80s, there were players like Larry Bird and Magic Johnson in the 80s, and Michael Jordan stood for those stature of players during the 90s and warranted that sort of money. The NBA needed someone through the 90s, through the rising commercialization, TV deals, sponsorship and advertising. It begs the question that if there was a player nowadays who would fit into that bill, what player would it be? And of course there was recently retired Kobe Bryant, which is a name that comes to mind, but you can't help but think it could only be LeBron James. Similar in stats and MVP awards and
sort of playing style.
Of course, and won championships, different position and height, but you'd think in terms of marketability at a time where LeBron James certainly in his career was head and shoulders above the rest, that he would be that player. I mean, McKern has stated that LeBron's earning US 32 million a year, and Steph Curry nowadays 34 million a year is the highest earners in US dollars in the NBA. And it shows that 20 years on how much of an absurd amount of money Michael Jordan earned, that 20 years on the contract he had was similar to the ones that the best NBA players now have. But wrapping this up, we've given our opinion, we've given our evidence and argument as to why he was such a marketable player. His ability transpired into the money and also commercialization off the court. If you could quickly wrap up, Hayden.
Just overall, I think Ryan and I are both in agreement, obviously, that Michael was thoroughly deserving of the contract he received, and he was a once-in-a-lifetime talent, which just, he could have asked for more if he wanted.
He could have asked for more. He was an invaluable player to the franchise at the time, and that's why we think he deserved that money. So we've given our thoughts. If you want to give us any questions, please do. We'll try and answer them. Thank you.
Yeah, feel free to ask anytime.
From Hayden and I.
Thank you very much.